Time for the headlines now from Smerconish.com and the newsletter. TC, what if I told you that I'm really disinterested in building my YouTube profile, and this is all a subterfuge just to get you to mix up your lipstick shade and your appearance each and every day?
I'm wearing stripes today. Stripes. This is crazy. I'm reaching into the back of my closet to try to find clothes that are not black.
Good.
It's completely insane.
You're upping your game.
It's not upping my game. It's taking up too much of my time. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to look
you're like a
halfway
schoolgirl.
decent.
Please. Just put on the uniform.
So I should, is it okay with you if I look the exact same every day?
I don't care what you do. I'm not involved in this. I'm just noting from across the room that you're taking your appearance serious in a way that
camera right here.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's good. It's good. People are digging it. People are enjoying watching the newsletter headlines.
Okay, there you go.
So I think it's really reaching a new audience, which is kind of cool. All right. Yesterday at Smerconish.com, 8,409 votes cast. This is the Richard Clark issue in the aftermath of the subway shooting. Should AI be integrated with a network of national ID photos, public surveillance video, phone records, license plates, etc., as a law enforcement tool? In other words, do we want to give all the technological tools of the trade to law enforcement, even if it means sacrificing our privacy, so that a guy like the Brooklyn subway shooter is immediately apprehended? Doesn't take 24 hours next time. The survey results, 50.66% said one thing and 49.34% said another. I'm not even going to tell you which side was which because it hardly matters. We are evenly divided on that question. Speaking of which, some very interesting follow-up reporting now about the shooter, whose name I really don't even want to say. This name I will say. Mayor Eric Adams of New York, we went with the New York Post coverage on the website today, said that social media firms could have flagged worrying behavior from the suspected N-Train shooter by alerting law enforcement to his vile online video rants before the terrifying attack. Quote, "We are watching signs around us of those who are leaning toward violent actions and ignoring them." Mayor Adams then goes on to say, "I can't play a song on a social media channel that belongs to somebody else without them identifying that." Isn't that true? Isn't that true? I mean, TC, in this back and forth that we do of the headlines from Smerconish.com, you've said to me, well, don't go playing a song as I typically would on radio, because if we're using YouTube, it'll get flagged.
They'll catch us, absolutely. So how is that possible?
That's the mayor's point.
Right.
That is the mayor's point. What it makes me think of is Stephen Levy, the editor-at-large from Wired,
yes,
who wrote the definitive book on Facebook. Did I ever tell you that I interviewed Stephen Levy on POTUS here?
Right.
I interviewed Stephen Levy on CNN, and then I interviewed him in front of a live audience at the Philadelphia Free Library. All of that you know already.
Sure.
Did I ever tell you that when we were backstage and about to go out on stage for me to interview him, it was like the day of the release of his book, Mark Zuckerberg texted him?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
To say what?
He
tell Smerconish I said hi?
I'm really violating all sorts of things now. But my recollection is, I don't remember the wording, the verbiage of the text, but my recollection was that Zuckerberg had read the book. He wasn't thrilled with it, but he really wasn't pissed off either.
This must have been an unusual occurrence, though,
yes,
if he told you. In other words, this wasn't like,
it was like one of these,
hey, hey, yeah.
It just came in, or he never would have told me.
Right.
Anyway, Stephen Levy, who wrote that great book on Facebook and is a really smart guy when it comes to technology, in the book that he wrote on Facebook, he takes us into a Facebook workplace where he paints a picture of it being this big, expansive room of just people in cubicle after cubicle after cubicle. And what are they doing? They have 60 seconds to look at a Facebook posting and make a determination as to whether they're going to leave it up or take it down. And the point is that even when you replace humans and use artificial intelligence, it's impossible. I've said this routinely. It's impossible to police. You have 8 billion people on the planet, and I think the number is 2.5 billion who are Facebook users. You can't police all the content. And what it sets up, and you've heard this from me before, it sets up those who are policed. Think Donald Trump removed from Twitter. Think controversy about the New York Post and Hunter's laptop and how that story wasn't allowed to spread through media platforms. It sets up a situation where there will be disparities and people will cry political foul. Why were you able to take down Trump, and yet the shooter in New York was telling you what he's going to do and nobody got in his way? So that's, I think, the update relative to the shooter. One other thing, Hannah Myers from the Manhattan Institute was on the program yesterday. Today, she's got an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. She makes this observation: on a larger scale, the massive pushback against policing and prosecution over the past 2 years has been enabled by decades of ever-falling crime. As research shows, the most impassioned proponents of defunding departments have been people too young to remember the violent crime of the 70s and 80s. I thought that was such a great observation. It's true. Those who are pushing for changes in policing don't have recollection of a time when crime was out of control. Happy to have had her here yesterday. Okay, today's survey question at Smerconish.com. Are masks still needed on airplanes and public transit? By the way, TC, do you know I got an alert yesterday that, and of course this is Good Friday and Easter Sunday coming up, PHL, Philadelphia International Airport,
I know where you're going.
Already at capacity for parking garages.
Okay.
And they're saying, like, if you're flying, don't drive to the airport.
I was actually,
don't drive and park.
Well, I was actually really glad to see that because we flew, I want to say 3 weeks ago. We went down to Florida for the weekend. And when we arrived, they were all full. I've never seen it like that. I have literally never seen it like that. Truth be told, we were cutting a little close.
Joey,
exactly.
Right? Because you've said you want to be there 2 hours in advance and he wants to be there 20 minutes in advance.
Exactly. But he always gets away with it. So we got, the guy was like, well, if you want to go up and look, got up and look, one guy walking to his car, one guy, bless.
And you just followed behind him?
Exactly. Like literally I got out of the car like this.
You know what bothers me at the airport, and I it's not just a Philly thing, those counters don't work.
No,
they don't work.
But Michael, this time
we have 57 spaces. I'm like, where are the 57 spaces?
This time they all said 0.
Oh,
they all said 0. It was terrifying. We did get the space, but this time we're going down to Raleigh to see my parents for Easter.
Nice.
We'll definitely be we'll Uber into the airport.
Nice.
I mean, thank goodness we know now though.
Okay. So
how is that possible? Just is everyone traveling?
I think there's such pent up demand.
Crazy.
That people, and I'll tell you something else, the airlines have scaled back on their flights because of the pandemic. And if you look at international flights, they are right now, in my view, charging you whatever they can get away with.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever they can get away with. Anyway, the survey question today: are masks still needed on airplanes and public transit? The deadline has been extended to May 3rd. Okay, listen, I'll hang in till May 3rd. But then,
will you, Michael?
Please, then we're done, okay? And one other observation, said as a man who spent 7 hours at the Philadelphia International Airport 2 weeks ago for that trip where I never took off and couldn't get my bag back. Anyway, why are the airplanes and the terminals necessarily one and the same? In other words, why can I go to an arena and watch a major sporting event or a concert right now without a mask, right? Somehow when I step foot in the terminal, I've got to be masked up. In other words, what I'm advocating is, I think we should get rid of the masks at this point. But if there's an argument for them, how about if you don't need to, if you're really getting there, if you're not on the Joey plan, and you really do get there 90 minutes in advance or even 2 hours in advance, do I really have to sit there with a mask in the terminal?
See, he would argue with you that you then have less time in the terminal and therefore...
Right, and he's got the right answer.
Exactly.
He may have the right answer. But I'm just saying, let's look at them separately. Associated Press coverage today noting that the U.S. is now about to hit the benchmark of 1 million people. 2 years, 1 million people due to COVID. How about this? COVID-19 has left an estimated 100, This will bring it home for you. 194,000 children in the U.S. without one or both of their parents. Not a lot of news in the overnight from Ukraine, except for Ukraine saying that its forces struck and seriously damaged a flagship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. The Russians are only acknowledging that there's an onboard fire, not giving credit to the Ukrainians for an attack. 500 sailors on board had to be evacuated. Not much else has changed. I do want to recommend from the newsletter today, there's an NPR story about stress and the physical toll that it takes on the human body. And the discussion is about President Zelensky. The 44-year-old's normally shaved face, bearded and lined, his forehead now scrunched in distress, his eyes with heavy bags underneath. They are the hallmark physical signs that can appear on anyone who's going through intense trauma and stress, particularly in wartime, says a psychologist named Glenn Patrick Doyle. Trauma and stress wreak havoc on the human body after prolonged exposure over time. Sleep, attention, memory, mood, physical appearance, and so much else are impacted. Good message for all of us. We're not in war, but just a nice, important reminder about how stress can take a physical toll on the human body. President Biden's approval rating now at an all-time low. If you say, Michael, didn't you tell me that a week ago? I did, and it was accurate then, but it was higher then than it is now. This is Quinnipiac showing that President Biden's approval rating is now at 33%. I looked at the internals. You know something that's interesting to me? Hispanics. The Hispanic vote is in play. The Asian vote is in play. A lot of other votes aren't in play. But Republicans doing well with Hispanics. And, you know, it's interesting. I think that there's this naivete that says, well, when Trump gets tough with the border, crossing, so said the mindset, it'll cost him in the Hispanic community. No, it's actually the opposite of that. Hispanics who are here want to see border enforcement. I know I'm painting with a broad brush, but trust me, there's some truth in that. Okay, TC, there's an opinion piece that we included in the newsletter today at Smerconish.com from Eric Weirson, who I think is in the entertainment industry. It's from NBC. And he notes something that got by me, which is that in that recent Washington Post interview with Josh Dawsey
down at Mar-a-Lago,
yep. Donald Trump floated the possibility. Let me stop right here. I have said to you, if he wants it, Trump gets the nomination unless one of three things happens, right? What have I said to you?
Healthy.
He's got to be healthy.
Unindicted. Solvent.
Right. You repeat those because you've heard me say it a bazillion times. So Eric Weirson says, hey, in that Josh Dawsey interview, Trump said, quote, you always have to talk about health. You look like you're in good health, but tomorrow you get a letter from a doctor saying, come see me again. That's not good when they use the word again. And he says this offhand comment, one that apparently came as something of an afterthought toward the end of the interview, sent shockwaves throughout the political establishment because it was the first time that Trump, who's been notoriously secret about sharing his health records, seemed to admit health issues could influence his decision as to whether he'll run. He'd be 78 by the time that he would take office again if it came to that.
So do you think that some doctor was calling him back? Is that what we think?
So the Weirson essay, which I recommend, goes on to posit the idea that maybe Trump is laying the predicate for an off-ramp.
Huh.
Maybe he's laying the predicate
I agree with him that
for an off-ramp.
You don't like the again.
Okay.
I mean, I agree.
On this subject, San Francisco Chronicle, this broke right before my commencement of the headlines today, and it's in the newsletter. Headline, colleagues worry. And I'm sure they had to debate a lot before they decided to publish this today. Colleagues worry Dianne Feinstein now mentally unfit to serve. This is not some hatchet job from a far-right blogger. This is the San Francisco Chronicle. This is the hometown newspaper. When a California Democrat in Congress recently engaged in an extended conversation with Senator Dianne Feinstein, they prepared a rigorous policy discussion like those they'd had with her many times over the last 15 years. Instead, the lawmaker said they had to reintroduce themselves to Feinstein multiple times during an interaction that lasted several hours. Rather than delve into policy, the 88-year-old Feinstein repeated the same small talk questions, like asking the lawmaker what mattered to voters in their district, with no apparent recognition that the two had already had a similar conversation. The episode was so unnerving that the lawmaker, who spoke to the Chronicle on the condition that they not be identified, began raising concerns with colleagues to see if some kind of intervention is necessary to persuade Feinstein to retire. Further along in the story, how about this? 4 U.S. senators, including 3 Democrats, as well as 3 former Feinstein staffers and the California Democratic member of Congress, told the Chronicle in recent interviews that her memory is rapidly deteriorating. They said it appears she can no longer fulfill her job duties.
Okay, Michael,
Wow.
this makes me sad, but
Me too.
who are the people closest to her? Where is her family? Where are, does she have children? What I like that to me, what is screaming out is there needs to be someone very close to her saying, Diane, enough. It's time.
You got to know when
And
to
that's a
hold them and know when to fold them.
terrible conversation.
So
A
sad.
terrible.
Well, and I'm
But
sure
they have to do it to protect her.
I'm sure that it resonates with people who are listening or people who are watching, because everybody's been in a familial situation and knows what that means.
Oh, that's terrible.
But this story is there's no way after this story that she'll be able to continue to serve, in my opinion. Her term runs through the end of 2024.
Is that right? 2024.
2024.
Okay. All right. That's a to be continued in a big way.
I have worked with her for a long time, and long enough to know what she was like just a few years ago, always in command, always in charge, on top of the details, basically couldn't resist a conversation where she was driving some bill or some idea. All of that is gone, said the lawmaker. She was an intellectual and a political force not that long ago, and that's why my encounter with her was so jarring, because there was just no trace of that. So sad story, really, really sad story. Okay, and finally, this, in terms of the headlines, they're all at Smerconish.com. Make sure you're voting and registering for the newsletter and watching the headlines newscast from the LA Times. As inflation soars, and we all know, we're at the highest level of inflation since 1982. Michael Jackson Thriller. It's been that long. How is Arizona, ARI, capital ZONA, Arizona iced tea, how is it still 99 cents? Gas is $6 a gallon. Groceries are 8% higher than last year. Dollar stores now $1.25 stores. But a giant 23-ounce can of Arizona iced tea still costs 99 cents, the same price it has been since it hit the market 30 years ago.
That's impossible.
Today, that's cheaper than most bottled water, 20-ounce sodas, iced teas, and canned coffees on the market. If you could fill your car up with cans of Arizona green tea with ginseng and honey, it would be cheaper than LA gas by nearly 40 cents a gallon.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? So how is it possible? The short answer is the company is making less money. The big cans are still profitable, but for the moment, they're much less so than a few years ago. Don Voltaggio is the 70-year-old 6'8" founder and chair of the company. He is choosing to take a haircut in order to keep the price flat and the cans moving. How's that? I'm going to go out and drink some Arizona, or as our kids used to say when they were young and we visited once, Arizonia. We were in Arizona.
That was in the Montessori era. I remember that.
So go drink some Arizona. Cheers. Some Arizona. By the way, today was Wawa free coffee day.
What do you mean? That was free?
This was free.
You're kidding me.
Free coffee day.
I
don't know. I know nothing about it other than
you have to buy something
else? I think you just go in there and get a cup of coffee.
Hey.
If not, go get the Arizona iced tea. Ladies and gentlemen, the survey question of the day today at Smerconish.com is about masks in travel. Are masks still needed on airplanes and public transit? My answer is no. I'm willing to hang in till May 3rd, but this time you better mean it. And let's start to look at airplanes and the terminals differently. Okay. What the answer for one might not necessarily be the answer for the other. Register for the newsletter. Thank you.